Hey guys, tonight we're heading back, way back, to ancient Rome. You're not an emperor or a general. Not tonight. Tonight, you're just one of the many tired feet shuffling up the marble steps of the Colosseum, the sun already blazing over the dusty city skyline. The smell of sweat, olive oil and slightly burnt sausages drifts past as you elbow for space in the queue. Your ticket? A little wooden token, probably stamped with a number. Your sandals? Already chafing. And your stomach? Loudly questioning why gladiator shows don't come with free snacks. That's right. Tonight's journey is all about what Romans snacked on while watching men fight to the death. And spoiler, you probably wouldn't survive this menu. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening from somewhere interesting, drop your location and what time it is for you right now in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge up another stair, nudging past a man balancing a tray full of cheese and something suspiciously moving. It's not quite dawn, but the Colosseum is already humming. Over 50,000 Romans will fill these stone benches today. Housewives, senators, merchants, even a few snoring slaves dragged along by their masters. You've got a decent spot, not too close to the action, blood splatter is extra, but not up with the pigeons either. As the crowd starts to murmur, the warm-up acts file in. Dancers, jugglers, maybe a novelty lion parade if the morning budget allows. The real fighting doesn't start until later, so the audience is mostly preoccupied with rustling through their satchels or haggling with food sellers clinking down the aisles. And let's be honest, you didn't skip breakfast just for a sword fight. You're here for the food, well, if we can call it that. The first thing you notice is a woman balancing a wicker basket on her head. She's shouting something about libum, and your memory finally spits out the meaning: cheese bread. Soft goat cheese folded into honey dough and baked on laurel leaves. You wave her over, rummage for a coin, and hand it over like it's your last hope for joy. The bread's warm, a little chewy, and definitely better than anything you cooked at home this week. Historians still argue whether these vendors were officially sanctioned by arena managers or just opportunistic hustlers who knew where the crowds, and their coins, gathered. What's clear is that food was everywhere. You're never far from someone chewing, spilling, or arguing about someone else's fig quota. Nearby, a father peels something that looks like a boiled egg but smells like a swamp. Pickled duck eggs, maybe? No one around you knows or cares. The point isn't precision. The point is snacking. You settle in and scan the arena floor. Sand, bloodstains, old bones, typical decor. The crowd starts to buzz louder as animal cages creak open behind the scenes. You chew slower, listening, waiting. The first match might be two criminals tied together and handed knives. Or a comedy act involving a dwarf and a camel. You really never know until you see it. But while you wait, a man behind you begins aggressively chewing on a strip of dried meat. It smells like cured goat and it sounds like wood cracking. Romans didn't have popcorn, but they had jerky, and some evidence suggests it was a stadium favorite, especially for poorer spectators. Easy to carry, hard to ruin, and makes just enough noise to annoy the person sitting in front of you. You glance at your surroundings. A woman 2 seats down smears something onto barley bread. It glistens like jelly, but you know better. Garum. Fermented fish sauce. The Roman answer to ketchup, but somehow more pungent, more sour, and occasionally chunky. It's made from fish guts left to rot in the sun and aged in clay vats until it's ready. That sounds horrifying. Congratulations, you're modern. In Rome, garum was everything. One bite later, your nose wrinkles but your mouth accepts its fate. It's salty, sharp, almost numbing. Like the food equivalent of biting into a lemon and pretending it's fine. Still, there's something comforting about the crowd. People laughing, kids stealing sips of watered-down wine, elders complaining about seating arrangements. No one's in a rush. The games haven't started, and neither has the chaos. The sun climbs higher, bouncing off the stone seats. Someone passes you a linen square soaked in rosewater, which you press to your forehead like a noble. It's not yours, but who's keeping track? Below, the arena crew begins smoothing the sand. Just a few hours left before the blood shows begin. For now, your snack keeps your hands busy, and your brain floats somewhere between curious and mildly grossed out. But that's ancient Rome for you. And you're just getting started. You shift on the stone bench, which is somehow both hot and slightly damp, an unpleasant combination that does little to distract you from the grumbling of your stomach. It's only mid-morning, and the scent of vinegar, baked grain, and something vaguely goatish is making the Colosseum feel more like an open-air buffet than a blood sport arena. You don't even have to go looking for food. The food comes to you. Down the stairs trundles a man wearing what can only be described as a portable pantry. Straps across his shoulders suspend a wooden tray overflowing with things. He's shouting, but not in Latin that you fully grasp, more like food vendor shorthand. Panis, Cassius, Oli. You get the gist. Bread, cheese, olives. The Roman holy trinity of daytime snacking. He pauses in front of your row. You peer into the tray. Everything is warm from the sun and possibly from the vendor's body heat, but you're too hungry to care. You grab a flat round of bread, crisped at the edges, and a handful of green olives that come in a little fig leaf pouch. A coin or two later, the vendor lurches off, yelling at a child who tried to pinch some dates. The bread is rougher than you expected. It's coarse, full of cracked grain and tough barley. This isn't the refined wheat stuff the elites eat. It's workers' food. But it's warm, and when you mash a few olives onto it, it's edible. Salty. Earthy. Definitely chewy. Historians believe that food vendors were a fixture at Roman spectacles, arenas, theaters, baths. Some were licensed, but others? Probably just good at running away when caught. Either way, they knew their audience. When people gather, people eat. Across the aisle, a woman unwraps something from a square of cloth. It looks like a poppy seed bun but smells suspiciously of fish. You're now familiar enough to suspect garum is involved. The woman catches you staring and smirks as she dips the bun into a little clay bowl and takes a theatrical bite. Her face says, "You wouldn't get it," and maybe she's right. A boy nearby balances a wide bowl of boiled lupin beans in his lap, peeling them slowly and tossing the skins on the ground. They squish under sandals, adding to the arena's texture of crushed crumbs, olive pits, and stray feathers. He notices your interest and offers you one, grinning. You take it. It's bitter at first, then nutty. Sort of like if a chickpea got tired and gave up halfway through growing flavor. And there, look. Another vendor, this one carrying a frame of dried fruit skewers like a curtain rod. Figs, dates, raisins pressed into sticky clusters. You wave him over, and he offers you a kebab of figs dipped in honey. It glistens, slightly oozing down your fingers, and the first bite is all syrup and seeds. You make a mental note. Figs make excellent napkins if you don't care about cleanliness. The arena floor is now bustling. Slaves rake sand, handlers prod lazy animals back into cages, and one unfortunate soul is dragging a mop cart that looks more ceremonial than effective. You overhear some men arguing behind you. Apparently the afternoon act includes an elephant, which has not yet arrived, and someone is very concerned about its punctuality. You return to your snack. The honey has turned runny in the sun, pooling at the base of your fig skewer. It sticks to your fingers, your sleeve, your dignity. You lick it off and pretend it's all part of the charm. A breeze rolls through the stands, carrying the layered scents of fried grain, human bodies, and rose-scented oil someone's overused. It's oddly pleasant, like being in a very crowded bakery during a small fire. You overhear two older men talking about the games during the reign of Titus. One swears there used to be better food, less vinegar in the wine, more anchovy paste on the bread. The other just grunts and dips his finger into a jar of what looks like plum chutney. "You just miss your teeth," the first one mutters. You suspect that's true. And speaking of wine, yes, they're drinking and so are you. The woman next to you pops the seal on a small amphora and pours a trickle into a dented tin cup. She offers you some. You hesitate. Roman wine, you've heard, is not for the faint of heart. Still, when in Rome, you take a sip. It's sour, astringent, a little smoky, like someone stored it in a burnt barrel with a handful of seawater. This isn't the mellow stuff. This is everyday Roman wine, cut with water, maybe mulled with herbs, maybe just old. There's an odd vinegar tang that tightens your jaw, but also a slight sweetness. You go in for another sip, mostly to make sure it's not poison. Historians still argue whether the poor actually brought their own wine or bought it diluted at the venue. Either way, you're not exactly enjoying it, but it's wet, and that counts for something under the midday sun. You look around. The crowd has thickened, the murmur is louder, the vendors are thinning out. Most have sold their wares and vanished. A man in a red tunic is still walking around with a leather pouch that jingles, probably candied nuts or maybe peppered chickpeas. You consider flagging him down but decide your stomach has reached peak fullness, and your fingers are already coated in olive oil and regret. Still, there's something delightful in all this mess. You're sticky, slightly tipsy, and the games haven't even started. You lean back, a fig stem still in your hand, and sigh. Ancient Rome might be a brutal place, but at least they knew how to snack. You're starting to settle into a rhythm now, legs stretched out as far as they'll go without tripping the vendor behind you, your tunic hiked just high enough to let your knees breathe, and a growing pile of olive pits accumulating under your bench like a quiet little monument to gluttony. It's not glamorous, but it's honest. And it's time for something heartier. From somewhere behind you, wafting on a breeze that smells of dust and faint goat, comes an aroma that makes you sit up straighter. It's rich, meaty, spiced. A passing shout confirms your suspicion. Lucanicae. Sausage. Fresh lucanicae. You crane your neck. There he is, a vendor in a stained apron, holding a tray of sizzling sausages skewered on thin reeds. You wave him down, and for a couple of asses he hands you a warm, slightly greasy Lucanica sausage wrapped in a flatbread that is, if you're honest, mostly serving as a napkin. You bite in. The casing snaps a little and the meat inside is, well, let's just say it's not factory processed. It's peppery, fatty, and strangely sweet, likely thanks to a touch of honey or garum mixed into the filling. Some scholars argue that Lucanicae were stuffed with pine nuts, herbs, and even bits of dried fruit. Others believe they were far simpler, just minced pork and whatever filler was cheapest that day. Whatever the truth, your mouth is too full to care. A few drops of grease trickle down your wrist. You pretend not to notice. The man beside you sniffs the air like a bloodhound and leans over with a hopeful grunt. You break off a small end of the sausage and hand it to him. Sharing is the Roman way, especially when no one's watching. You chew slowly, watching as a group of handlers begin guiding in the props for a naval reenactment. Yes, they flood the arena floor. Yes, it takes hours. And yes, you're going to need more snacks. Behind you, another vendor calls out something about panis cum casio, bread with cheese. But you're in no mood for dry crumbs. Instead, a younger girl shuffles past with a tray of plump dates, some split open and clearly stuffed with crushed nuts or cheese. You raise a brow. Stuffed dates, you ask. Crushed almonds, little honey, maybe some pepper? She replies with the confidence of someone who's tested the product thoroughly. You bite too. The texture surprises you. Soft on the outside, creamy in the middle, then a whisper of heat from black pepper at the end. A sweet treat with attitude. You nod approvingly, and the girl smiles before disappearing into the crowd like a snack-selling phantom. Historians still debate how much of this food was truly eaten by everyday Romans at public games. Some claim that only the wealthy brought such elaborate items. Dates stuffed with nuts, garum-drenched pastries, seasoned sausages. But there's growing evidence that middle-class citizens, traders, and artisans had access to a surprisingly broad range of edibles. After all, the games were for everyone. If you had a coin, you had a seat, and a snack. Someone behind you curses. You turn just in time to see a boy drop an entire wedge of cheese into the folds of his cloak. A sheepish recovery attempt follows. You pretend not to notice. Everyone deserves a second chance at cheese. A senator strides by, escorted by 2 slaves, one of whom carries a silver tray laden with delicate tarts, candied almonds, and a bottle of imported Falernian wine. You watch with mild envy. Your sausage napkin is starting to look a little pedestrian. But you're not here for fine dining. You're here for immersion. For crunching your way through 2nd century Rome one greasy morsel at a time. A breeze picks up again, this time strong enough to ruffle your hair and scatter someone's parchment menu down the aisle. You notice someone 3 rows down balancing a clay pot filled with something pale and wobbling. Is it custard? Porridge? Goat yogurt? You're too far away to tell, and honestly maybe that's for the best. Nearby, a small group shares a shallow bowl of boiled chickpeas mixed with herbs. They eat with fingers, licking salt from their thumbs like it's the best part. A woman offers you one. You take it. Soft, herbal, warm from the sun. You smile and nod your thanks. Every bite here seems like a gamble. Sometimes you get sweetness, sometimes salt, occasionally a mystery. And yet, none of it feels foreign anymore. The more you eat, the more the noise of the Colosseum fades into something almost soothing, like the lull of a very loud dinner party where no one is obligated to speak. You stretch. Not because you're tired, but because your stomach is now hosting a mini forum of its own. You wonder idly how many people have fallen asleep here during the early matches. Maybe even drooled onto their own lap full of lentils. You'd never admit it aloud, but you wouldn't mind a nap right about now either. And just as you're about to lean back, the horns sound. Not the big fanfare, just a warm-up signal. Something's happening soon. But not quite yet. You still have time to snack. The horn fades, replaced by the low hum of anticipation. Somewhere beneath you, animals shuffle in their cages, chains clink faintly, and the sand on the arena floor has been raked into neat patterns that, in an hour or 2, will be thoroughly ruined. But for now your attention shifts to your cup. Because yes, you're thirsty again. And lucky for you, a vendor is heading your way with wineskins swinging from both shoulders like overripe grapes. You flag him down and squint at the offering. What is it? You ask cautiously. Fumum vinum, he replies. Smoky wine. Oh boy. You exchange a coin and receive a small ceramic cup of the stuff. It smells like a chimney and tastes like someone stirred ashes into vinegar and dared you to enjoy it. This is no Falernian vintage. It's local, rough, probably stored in a reused oil jar. But again it's wet. And at this point that's enough. Historians still debate the actual quality of average Roman wine, especially what was sold at public games. Most agree it was often mixed with resin, herbs, honey, and sometimes salt or seawater, not to improve the flavor, but to preserve it and mask the inevitable spoilage. And yet, Romans drank it constantly. Not drinking wine marked you as either extremely pious or extremely suspect. You take another sip because why not? Your tongue might never forgive you, but your throat is grateful. The vendor offers a second option, wine with mulsum, a honey infusion. You're tempted, but the crowd's growing louder now, and moving vendors are harder to track once the action begins. Instead, you unwrap a fig from your satchel, a little squashed but still sweet. You remember the vendor saying these were brought from Hispania. Dried in the sun, packed tight and sold by weight. You tear it open and see tiny seeds glistening inside, sticky and dark. As you chew, your jaw slows. There's something comforting about figs, earthy, ancient, like eating an edible relic. You look around. Everyone's doing the same, chewing, licking, sipping, nodding at friends. It's a whole language of snacking without words. A man across the aisle gives you a fig solidarity nod. You return it solemnly. Then someone nearby pops the lid off a small clay pot and stirs. The aroma wafts over. A thick stew bubbling slowly from the retained heat of earlier fire. You lean a bit, trying to spot the contents. Lentils? Chickpeas? Maybe carrots, maybe onion. It smells earthy like garden soil and crushed garlic. Your stomach flinches with longing. She catches your look and offers a spoonful. You hesitate for half a second, then accept. It's warm, a little mushy, very salty, and absolutely delicious. The woman smiles and gestures to her neighbors. Soon it's a small communal moment. 5 strangers trading bites, passing around crusts of bread and pickled garlic cloves. This, you realize, is half the fun. Yes, the gladiators will come. Yes, someone might lose a limb in front of a cheering crowd. But right now, it's just people. Eating, waiting, laughing, arguing over whether yesterday's games had better lions. You wipe your mouth and take a breath. The heat is building. The stone seat beneath you is warming fast, and the crowd shifts like a living thing, layers of tunics, cloaks, and sweaty arms jostling gently. You reach into your pouch and pull out a treat you nearly forgot. Candied pine nuts. Bought earlier from a man with a beard like a broom, wrapped in waxed paper and tied with string. You pop a few in your mouth. Sweet, nutty, with just a trace of cinnamon or maybe dried rose petal. It's the closest you've come to dessert, and it's glorious. Some historians believe these kinds of treats were luxury items, brought by the wealthy or purchased by those looking to impress a date. But others point to graffiti and shopping lists etched on Roman walls, ones that mention candied seeds, fruit pastes, and honey biscuits in everyday terms. Maybe these weren't rarities after all. Maybe even the common Roman deserved a little sugar rush before the carnage. You're just finishing your pine nuts when the crowd shifts again, this time more focused. A group of slaves begins clearing the lower arena floor. A man holding a long pole begins testing the sand, perhaps ensuring no hidden weapons or traps remain. And with that, your snacking window is starting to close. But wait, you spot one last vendor scrambling past with a tray of fried dough balls. Globuli maybe. Little globs of wheat dough fried in oil and drizzled with honey. You wave, toss him a coin, and catch one wrapped in parchment. You bite in. The crust is crispy, the inside doughy and warm, and the honey has melted into a sticky glaze that glues itself to your teeth and your soul. You're fairly sure this one dessert contains more joy than the entire Senate. And just as you savor the last bite, a trumpet sounds, louder this time. The show's about to begin. The trumpet blast settles into your chest like the bass line of an ancient drum, and the energy in the Colosseum rises with a slow, rippling excitement. Thousands of Romans shift forward on their stone benches, you included, your fingers still a little sticky from that last glob of honey-fried dough. But there's time, just a little more time, before anything actually starts bleeding. You pat your tunic for crumbs and straighten up as the first performers enter the arena floor. They're not gladiators. No, these are the pre-show acts. Acrobats, jesters, maybe a few exotic animals on leashes for dramatic flair. Today it's a pair of Nubian dancers, their movements fluid and hypnotic against the golden dust, with ankle bells tinkling and long scarves whipping through the air. You lean forward, chewing idly on a dried apricot. It's tough but tangy like nature's fruit leather. You peel the skin back with your teeth and glance around. A man near you is gnawing on what looks like a roast chestnut, cracking the shell between his molars and spitting the shards into a cloth. Across the aisle, a trio of older women has produced a full spread on their laps. Linen napkins, pickled onions in little jars, slices of soft cheese wrapped in laurel leaves, and a tightly packed ball of something that might be meat or beans or both. It's impressive, frankly. You begin to suspect they've been attending these events for decades and have the snack game down to a precise science. Meanwhile, you spot a boy balancing a shallow bowl of pulse, a kind of Roman porridge made from emmer wheat. It looks bland, beige, and perfectly suited for the sleepy lull before the main event. You trade him a sliver of dried fig for a taste. It's warm, nutty, and shockingly filling, like eating a cozy blanket. Historians still argue whether pulse was primarily a military ration or a household staple, but there's no doubt it made its way into public events. Easy to transport, easy to eat, and if you were lucky, topped with honey or herbs to mask the texture of warm wallpaper paste. You're about 3 spoonfuls in when someone yells. Not a scream, just a theatrical shout. Everyone turns. At last, the first group of gladiators is entering the arena. They're not here to fight yet. This is the pre-fight ritual. sort of a parade mixed with a meet and greet with just a hint of doom. The editor of the games, some rich sponsor who paid for today's entertainment, stands to announce their names. The crowd hums with approval or groans depending on the popularity of each fighter. You overhear someone saying that one of them, Marius the Red, once defeated 3 opponents in one match. Someone else claims that's exaggerated and that he only won because one of the others had a dislocated shoulder. You sip your wine and decide to believe whichever version sounds more fun. As the fighters pass by, some raising their arms in salute, the crowd responds with cheers or silence. You get the sense that everyone has favorites, even if they've never seen these particular men before. It's the equivalent of betting on a horse because you like the name. But you're distracted again, this time by a sharp scent coming from behind. You turn to find a woman carefully peeling strips of cured pork from waxed paper. It's perna, a sort of Roman ham that's been smoked and rubbed with herbs. She catches your look, smiles, and tears off a piece to share. You nod gratefully. The taste is strong, salty, spiced, and dense. It's the kind of food that feels like it should come with a mug of something hot and a minor medical warning. But it's undeniably satisfying. And for a fleeting moment, you wonder if any of the gladiators on the sand below were allowed a bite before donning their armor. Probably not. As the fighters move into formation, the drums begin. Not booming but steady, one note every few seconds like a heartbeat. You return to your food, well, what's left of it? A few olives, some fragments of barley cake, and one suspicious-looking date that might be older than you. You pop it into your mouth anyway. Nearby, someone begins passing around a jar of pickled radishes. You accept one. It's tangy, crunchy, and weirdly refreshing in the heat. Not the kind of snack you'd normally reach for, but here, under a baking sun with sand swirling around your ankles, it hits the spot. The ritual continues. Some of the gladiators perform mock exercises. One twirls a sword with theatrical flair. Another adjusts his helmet and stares into the crowd with a gaze so intense you're pretty sure he could see your soul, or at least your fig-smeared fingers. Then the drums stop, and the silence falls like a curtain. This is the final moment before the real fight begins. And you're full, slightly sticky, a little tipsy from smoky wine and strangely at peace. Because no matter what happens next, whether Marius the Red becomes Marius the Dead, or some unknown Retiarius nets himself a victory, you've had your fill. And the snacks were worth it. The silence stretches. Not awkward but sacred. The kind of hush that settles when thousands of people collectively hold their breath, even if they're still digesting honey-glazed pine nuts and questionable sausage. You sit upright now, the last smudge of fig syrup wiped from your wrist with the corner of your tunic. The breeze still carries faint smells of olive oil and smoke, but they're fading behind the tension rising like dust from the arena floor. Then, a sharp clang of metal. It echoes off stone walls, bouncing up to your section where every neck cranes instinctively. 2 gladiators have stepped forward. The match has begun. But let's be honest, your mind, ever the loyal stomach servant, is drifting back to food. Because between the clangs and crowd roars, something new has caught your eye. A slave near the front row hurriedly unrolling a bundle of cloth, revealing a tightly packed spread of tiny pastries, miniature tartlets, round and golden, possibly filled with date paste or soft goat cheese. A few are dusted with ground poppy seeds. You're too far away to partake, but the image is burned into your mind like a vision of the good life. Nearby, a young man is casually nibbling what appears to be a chunk of boiled lentil loaf. Meridum, perhaps? A kind of rustic paste made from garlic, herbs, and cheese, usually spread on bread. But he's just eating it plain like an unrepentant bachelor. You admire the energy. Historians argue over just how elaborate Roman portable food got. Some claim spectators brought packed meals in woven baskets, bread, fruits, soft cheeses wrapped in grape leaves. Others insist that most Romans relied on vendors or shared basic, sturdy snacks like dried peas, lupins, and onions. You're beginning to believe the truth lies somewhere in between. If you had the coin, you had the calories. The cheer rises. Steel scrapes again. One gladiator, lightly armored, wielding a net, lunges forward. His opponent, clad in heavier bronze gear, dodges with surprising grace. The fight is not fast, not yet, but it's mesmerizing. Like slow, violent dancing. But even the finest choreography can't compete with the aroma drifting toward you now. Roasted garlic. Hot, fresh roasted garlic. Your head turns instinctively. A few rows down opens a wax-sealed jar, and steam escapes like a genie from a bottle. Whatever they're dipping into it smells warm, salty, and alive with flavor. Maybe roasted garlic mashed with olive oil and soft cheese? You hear someone behind you mutter, "That's the good stuff." You nod even though they weren't talking to you. You dig in your pouch, rummaging for a last-ditch snack. Ah yes, a crumbled barley cake. Flat, dry, but pressed with sesame seeds and maybe a hint of figure. You nibble. It's like eating edible gravel but in a comforting way. You sip the last of your smoky wine to wash it down. Your attention briefly returns to the fight. The net flies, misses. The murmurs grow louder. The bronze-helmeted man jabs forward. A clean move, but the net fighter is quick, slipping away and circling wide. This will take a while. And honestly, your seat is warm, your eyelids a little heavy, and that barley cake is working like a mild sedative. To your left, a family is huddled over a shared clay pot. Inside is something creamy and pale with flecks of green. Could be mashed chickpeas with mint, or crushed fava beans with garlic and vinegar. They're scooping it out with fingers and bits of stale bread, eating like they're at a dinner table instead of watching two men try to impale each other. You take in the view. There's something surreal about it all. This collision of spectacle and snacking, of sweat and sauce, of danger and dried fruit. You're in the Colosseum, and yet you feel like you're at a giant picnic that just so happens to involve Mortal Kombat. You close your eyes for a moment. Just long enough to let the sun warm your face. Just long enough to imagine what it would be like if today wasn't about blood at all, but only about the food. A snack games, perhaps. Judged not by kill count, but by who brought the best fig tart. But alas, the crowd erupts. A sudden shout. Something significant has happened and you missed it. You open your eyes to see the net fighter on the ground, his opponent looming over him, blade raised. The referee, known as the Summa Rudis, steps in to mediate. There's a pause. The crowd now begins that ritual chant, Ugula, mit, Ugula, mit, throat or mercy. Meanwhile, you glance down and realize you've dropped a chickpea under your bench. Oh wow. A noble sacrifice. The decision is made. The man on the ground is spared. The crowd applauds, some disappointed, others relieved. You exhale, unexpectedly grateful. Perhaps the food has made you soft. The fighters leave the arena to rest and prepare. There's a brief break. A few moments to relax before the next match. You lean back, hand resting on your stomach, which is now a comfortable swirl of lentils, garum, honey, and mystery meat. You look around. No one's speaking, but everyone's chewing. The hush after combat feels different now. It isn't suspenseful, it's satisfied. The way a room settles after the last bite of dessert or the final page of a good book. People shift in their seats, stretch their legs, and begin opening whatever food they had saved for the break. You're already ahead of them. You dig into your pouch again, hoping for a forgotten morsel, and yes, beneath a crumpled fig leaf and a slightly crushed date, you find it. A soft roll of goat cheese wrapped in waxed linen. It's melting slightly, perfumed with herbs you can't quite identify. You tear off a piece and smear it onto the remainder of your barley bread. The contrast is divine, soft against rough, creamy against grainy. Beside you, the man who shared his sausage earlier now produces a handful of dried mulberries. He passes you one. It's chewy and sweet, with a strange, almost floral aftertaste. You nod gratefully. Romans didn't just snack, they curated their bites. Below, slaves work quickly to rake the arena floor again. The sand is stained, of course, and speckled with debris. But there's a rhythm to it: sweep, pour, rake. The audience barely notices anymore. The noise dips as people unwrap new food, pass flasks, and wipe their fingers on cloaks and elbows. Somewhere to your right, a young couple is whispering over a tightly sealed container. Then, success. The lid pops off with a soft plop and a strong whiff of vinegar rises. Pickled eggs. Or possibly onions. Hard to tell from here, but the aroma is eye-watering in the best way. Historians still debate just how pickled Roman food got. Preservation was essential after all. And vinegar, salt, and oil weren't just flavor, they were survival. These acidic little snacks were common in bathhouses, markets, and yes, even during gladiatorial games. You watched the couple eat, each bite followed by a grimace, a laugh, and a swig of watered wine. You pop another mulberry into your mouth. The crowd, meanwhile, is in mid-conversation. The match they just saw is being dissected from every angle. Should the net fighter have gone for the ankle? Was his footwork better than yesterday's Thracian? Someone swears they saw him hesitate before the final blow. Proof of cowardice or compassion, depending on who you ask. You lean back and enjoy the soundscape. The murmur of debate, the slosh of amphorae, the crunch of crushed lupins underfoot. Then trouble. From down the row, a man curses loudly. His wax-sealed jar of olives has broken, spilling brine and pits into his lap. The juice is soaking into his tunic and he looks personally betrayed. Around him, people offer half-hearted sympathy and zero assistance. A woman hands him a cloth napkin and a knowing smirk. You turn away to preserve his dignity, and open a small twist of parchment you almost forgot you packed. Inside, candied ginger. Sure. Sweet. It hits your tongue like a lightning bolt wrapped in sugar. You blink, then smile. Is the perfect post-cheese cleanser. Across the aisle, a group of teenagers are sharing fried chickpeas seasoned with asafoetida, strong-smelling but oddly addictive. One tosses one in the air and catches it, earning an eye roll from an older man nearby. He retaliates by loudly slurping his lentil soup from a travel mug that might once have been a flower vase. You take another bite of cheese. This one stronger, aged in a jar maybe. It crumbles into your mouth with a tang that nearly makes you sneeze. But then it mellows. You tear another piece of bread and go in again. The arena crew finishes their reset. Trumpets sound again, shorter this time. The second match is about to begin. You exhale and stretch your toes. The sun has shifted now, casting long shadows across the upper tiers. A vendor pushes past, grumbling about sunburn and broken amphorae. He stops just long enough to offer you something wrapped in palm leaf. Sweet bun? He asks. You nod. Why not? Inside is a soft, oily little loaf dotted with raisins and dusted with what might be crushed coriander seed. It tastes like sunshine and overripe fruit. The texture is strange, somewhere between cake and dumpling, but you're in no place to critique. It's warm and it's yours. A man near the edge of your row strikes up a conversation with a woman holding a tray of dried figs. They talk food, then recipes, then casually about which gladiator has the best shoulders. The woman has strong opinions on this. The man listens politely, mostly focused on her fig preparation technique. There's no hurry. No one's really eating fast. Even with bloodshed ahead, the pace of the crowd is gentle, unhurried. Snack first, scream later. That's the Roman way. Below, the new fighters begin circling. This time it's a heavier match. Two murmillos, both with broad shields and short swords. It will be slower, more strategic, and likely messier. You adjust your seat. A crumb falls into your sandal. You decide to ignore it. You take a sip of the wine left in your cup. It's turned more sour, but you're past caring. You lean forward as the first blade swings. But your mind? Still on those sweet buns. Steel crashes against shield, and the arena jolts to life again. A chorus of gasps, cheers, and applause erupts from the stands, echoing up through rows of linen-clad elbows and half-eaten sausage wraps. You lean forward instinctively, eyes tracing the arc of a sword, but your hand is already moving toward the last slice of goat cheese on your lap. Somehow the two instincts, watching violence and reaching for cheese, have become one. You take a bite, slow and deliberate. The salt and tang balance perfectly with the remnants of that sweet raisin bun still clinging to the back of your tongue. A strange harmony of flavors, built not with intention but with accumulation. Welcome to the Roman dining experience, layer upon layer of bite-sized chaos. Below, the two Murmillos lock shields, grunting, shoving, trying to outmaneuver one another. A dropped helmet skitters across the sand. The crowd leans in. You, meanwhile, casually peel open a fig leaf bundle that smells unmistakably of dill. Inside, two wedges of boiled egg resting atop barley mash. It's humble fare but protein-packed, and you can't deny the comfort of a food that doesn't involve vinegar or unexpected bones. To your left, a merchant is balancing a narrow wooden tray on his knees. On it are tiny bowls of different condiments, mustard, fermented fish sauce, a sharp green paste that might be some ancestor of horseradish. He dips a skewer of salted vegetables into each one in sequence, offering you a try with a raised brow. You accept a spear of pickled carrot and try the green stuff. Your eyes water immediately. Whatever that was, it wasn't meant for mortals. The man laughs. You try not to look offended as your tongue tingles and your sinuses try to leave your body. Historians still puzzle over how much spice was actually used in Roman snacks. While black pepper was traded at high cost from India, native herbs like thyme, coriander, mint, and even mustard seeds were abundant and often found in preserved recipes. You get the sense that Romans, like modern foodies, enjoyed the occasional mouth-burning surprise. Back on the field, one Murmillo lunges, drawing first blood. The crowd roars. The man behind you spills part of his olive tapenade on his toga, and curses under his breath. His friend offers him a plum as consolation. You chew slowly, watching the drama unfold and marvel, not at the fight but at how nonchalant everyone seems about it. As if it's just a dinner show. Which, to be fair, it kind of is. A couple of seats down, someone unwraps a vine leaf parcel, releasing the scent of cooked lentils and onions. It's been stuffed and folded into a neat little triangle. The woman eating it does so slowly, chewing thoughtfully, oblivious to the fact that a man with a very sharp trident is currently attempting to skewer his opponent 20 feet below her. The games and the snacks seem to exist on parallel tracks. One noisy, frenzied, fleeting, the other soft, slow, and oddly eternal. You shift your weight, sighing contentedly. The air is changing, cooler now as clouds drift in front of the sun. A few vendors start shouting new deals to unload what's left of their trays. A boy walks past offering lukewarm grape must in tiny clay cups. You take one. It's sweet, almost syrupy, and tastes like someone tried to ferment raisins in a boot. Still, it's oddly refreshing. In the row below, a man has clearly gone all out. He's eating from a silver dish, probably borrowed or stolen. On it sits a finely sliced honey cake dusted with ground nuts. The kind of snack that tells you he's either rich or very confident in his ability to look rich. You watch, envious, as he takes the tiniest bites imaginable, making each piece last exactly one beat of the drums from the arena below. You applaud his self-control. Internally. Meanwhile, a group of children nearby are peeling roasted chestnuts. Their fingers are black with soot, and they keep giggling as they drop the slippery ones onto the stone steps. A woman scolds them half-heartedly while scooping the fallen ones into a pouch for later. There's no waste here. Everything gets eaten. Eventually. Another crash of metal. One Murmillo has dropped to one knee. The other raises his shield triumphantly, but it's unclear whether the match is over or just getting spicy. The referee steps in again. You munch on the last of your carrot stick and decide that no matter who wins, the real prize today is your stomach. Above you, in the upper tiers, someone starts playing a reed pipe. Not officially sanctioned, judging by the glares from nearby guards, but oddly pleasant. The notes drift over the crowd like a lullaby from an adjacent world. Paired with the smell of roasted pine nuts and the gentle crackle of olive pits underfoot, it's almost relaxing. You consider closing your eyes. But then a hawker passes shouting, "Honeyed almonds! Still warm." You sit bolt upright. You call him over, hands already fumbling for coins. The man hands you a small packet, folded in fig leaf, still warm and fragrant. You peel it open and find golden almonds glistening with sugar and crushed sesame. You pop one into your mouth. Crunchy. Sweet. Perfect. You lean back again, honey on your tongue, as the defeated Murmillo drops his sword and salutes the crowd. The match is over. But your feast continues. The Murmillo limps off the field, arms slung over a fellow fighter's shoulder. Somewhere behind the columns, he'll be tended to, wounds cleaned, bruises wrapped, perhaps given a cup of watered wine if his patron is feeling generous. You, meanwhile, are busy licking sugar from your fingertips, the warmth of the honeyed almonds still clinging pleasantly to your tongue. The sun is lower now, casting long golden streaks across the stone benches and highlighting just how stained everyone's tunics have become. Bread crumbs, wine dribbles, a bit of fig pulp smeared across someone's sleeve, it's the visual record of a good Roman afternoon. And it's far from over. Your stomach, unbelievably, is still receptive. Not hungry exactly, but curious. Across the aisle, an elderly woman opens a basket and removes what looks like a tightly rolled bundle wrapped in grape leaves. She slowly peels it back to reveal a cold spiced lentil patty, glistening with oil and studded with pine nuts. She tears it in half with quiet dignity and offers you a piece with the kind of expression that says, "I've seen 20 emperors rise and fall, but I still know how to pack a proper lunch." You take it. It's chewy and savory, almost like an herby meatloaf with none of the meat. Romans loved legumes, lentils, chickpeas, broad beans, cheap, filling, and blessedly non-perishable. You've read that entire military campaigns were fueled on little more than dried beans and willpower. Not that today requires that level of sacrifice. From somewhere above, a merchant shouts something about vapa, a term for poor quality wine. It's cheap and abundant, and you watch a cluster of lower-tier attendees pass around a jug with great enthusiasm and no discernible judgment. You're about to ask the man next to you if he wants the last bite of your lentil patty when your attention is seized by an unmistakable sound, the soft squelch of fruit being crushed underfoot. A man 2 rows down has dropped his basket of fresh plums, and they're now a purple trail of sweet, sticky ruin. His expression is pure tragedy. A vendor offers him a replacement, dried persimmons, flattened and sugared. He accepts with a sigh that says it's fine, but it'll never be a plum. You make a mental note to get some fruit yourself before the day is done. Just then, a boy slips between the rows with a jug balanced on his shoulder, offering sapa, boiled grape must, thick and sweet like syrup. He ladles a small portion into a cup and passes it to you. It's cloying, yes, but rich and dark, like if molasses had a summer fling with red wine. You swirl it around in your mouth, imagining it drizzled over goat cheese or folded into bread dough. Historians suggest sapa was both a condiment and a sweetener, used liberally in cooking but also sipped on its own. Of course, the strength and sweetness varied depending on who made it, and how desperate they were to disguise bad grapes. You sip again. Yours seems respectable. Back in the arena, the next act is more theatrical. A group of gladiators demonstrating mock combat techniques for the younger crowd. A sort of educational interlude between bloodier engagements. The crowd laughs as one fighter pretends to slip on his shield and fall into the sand. The children squeal with joy. You chew on a nut and nod sagely. The man next to you offers a small round cake, dense and dusted with flour. Panis militaris, he explains, soldier's bread. Hard as stone and meant to last a lifetime or two. You gnaw on a corner and feel your teeth beg for mercy. Still, it's oddly satisfying. Durable. Dependable. Like eating a commitment. You glance around at the audience. Some are dozing now, heads tipped back, mouths slightly open, hands resting on the bellies they've spent all afternoon expanding. Others chat, comparing notes on the day's fighters or planning which bathhouse to visit after the games. A few are still eating, those with iron stomachs or bottomless satchels. There's a quiet camaraderie in all this. No one's showing off, no one's counting bites. It's a shared ritual, casual but comforting. The man across from you picks at a bowl of pickled cabbage. The woman behind you unwraps a garlicky meatball with her bare hands and doesn't flinch when juice dribbles down her chin. You find yourself thinking, there's something admirable about a civilization that pairs public executions with stuffed olives. And not just olives, marinated artichokes, garum-glazed nuts, honey-roasted chickpeas. All of it. The snacks are just as much a spectacle as the swords. Maybe even more enduring. Gladiators come and go. But a good stuffed date? That's forever. The breeze returns, softer now, scented with charred wood and something faintly floral. You spot a woman lighting a small cone of incense tucked under her bench. Probably rose or frankincense. A polite nod to the gods. Or maybe just a subtle way to mask the scent of fermented fish sauce still lingering from earlier. You smile, stretch your legs and rub your belly. You've eaten like a Roman. You've cheered like one. And now, as the arena quiets again in preparation for the next and final match of the day, you prepare for one last bite. Because there's always room for one more. The sun has begun its slow descent behind the upper walls of the Colosseum, casting long shadows that creep across the stands like sleepy fingers. The light turns golden, catching in the curls of unkempt hair, glinting off bronze buckles and dusty amphora rims. It's the hour when the heat finally softens and the crowd begins to settle, not from boredom but from digestion. You adjust your posture for the 100th time, shifting on the stone bench that now feels molded to your backside. The faint ache in your knees tells you you've been sitting too long, but then again, how often does one get to spend an entire day feasting like an imperial pigeon? Your thoughts are interrupted by a soft clink. A boy to your left has just unwrapped a palm-sized pouch made of stitched grape leaves. From inside, he pulls a single roasted fig stuffed with spiced walnuts and drizzled with something glossy. Maybe honey, maybe sapa. He breaks it in half and offers you the larger piece without a word. You take it nodding. It's chewy, a bit gritty from the nuts and just the right kind of sweet. The flavors swirl around the remnants of lentil mash and mustard seed lingering on your tongue. It shouldn't work, but it does. Roman snacks aren't interested in modern categories like sweet or savory. They're layered like gossip passed through 10 mouths, unexpected, bold, and probably a little fermented. Below, the arena floor is freshly raked. A new pair of fighters enters, heavily armored, slow-moving, and imposing. The crowd doesn't shout this time. They murmur. This is serious. High-ranking gladiators. The final match of the day. You glance around. Most of the vendors are gone now. Those still around are either half asleep or trying to offload the last of their limp barley cakes and suspicious sausage ends. A girl with honey dates swings her tray low as she passes, calling out a half-hearted, "Sweet bites before sunset." You wave her over. You buy 2. Maybe 3. One of them is still warm, pressed flat and slightly charred at the edges. You take a bite and close your eyes. Crunch. Syrup. Soft fig interior. It melts instantly, leaving only seeds and satisfaction. Beside you, someone opens a small clay container and removes slices of cured meat, dark, glossy strips, probably boar or goat, rolled and tied with string. They pass one your way. You chew thoughtfully. It tastes like thyme, smoke, salt, a hint of bay leaf, and patience. Historians continue to debate the precise seasoning of Roman cured meats. Some say they were heavily peppered, others suggest wine marinades, and a few brave scrolls mention wild additions like fennel or crushed rose petals. You think you might be detecting rosemary, or is that just your imagination filling in the blanks? You lean back and let the flavor fade. Below, the fight begins. One of the gladiators swings wide, sparks flying as metal scrapes shield. The other counters. It's methodical, almost slow motion compared to earlier bouts. Every movement feels rehearsed, measured, like the finale of a dance that's lasted centuries. And yet the audience is calm. No chants. No screams. Just quiet chewing. You pull out your final treat, a tiny sesame biscuit wrapped in a fig leaf. It's dry, crumbly, but somehow just right for this moment. You let it melt between your teeth as you exhale through your nose, eyes half closed, body heavy with food and sun. To your right, an old man finishes the dregs of his wine and sighs deeply, the sound curling upward like smoke. He mutters something to himself, maybe a prayer, maybe a recipe, and then settles into stillness. You glance down at your lap. A small mound of food wrappers, olive pits, grape seeds, and a few date stems sit there like archaeological evidence of your afternoon. You brush them aside carefully, letting the breeze carry them down between the rows. A child behind you drops a chunk of dried apple and immediately bursts into tears. His mother produces a replacement before the sob even finishes forming. You smile. The Romans are nothing if not prepared. Then another set. Subtle. Smoky. Is someone roasting nuts again? No, this is different. A blend of toasted grain and slow-burn oil, maybe hazelnuts or flax. Someone, somewhere has saved their best snack for the final round. You respect that. The fighters pause, circling now, blades glinting in the late sun. Dust kicks up around their feet. One of them faints. The other does not fall for it. You blink slowly, eyelids heavier than they should be. The heat, the food, the sound of sandals scraping stone, it's all conspiring to lull you into an almost meditative trance. You bite the last corner of your sesame biscuit. And just as you finish chewing, the crowd gasps. You look up. The sword has fallen. One fighter stumbles. The other raises his arm for the finishing blow. But you don't flinch. You're too full. Too warm. Too at peace. Whatever happens down there, who lives, who dies, who earns freedom or mercy, it'll be just another part of the Roman story. And you? You'll remember the sausage. The final blow never lands, not yet. The victorious gladiator hesitates, sword poised, chest heaving with effort and heat. The defeated Murmillo lies still, eyes closed, waiting. Then, predictably, the crowd begins its chant. Mit, spare him. Your lips don't move, but your fingers tighten slightly around your empty fig leaf wrapper. This is the part of the Roman games that always brings a strange tension, half moral, half theatrical. You came for the show and not the death. Well, maybe a little death. But not the man you just saw share a glance of exhaustion with the sky. You glance around. Even the snackers have paused. And then the thumb turns. Down. It's hard to see. But relief spreads across the Murmillo's face as the victor steps back. The crowd sighs, like a balloon letting out its air after a long, anxious moment. Mercy today. Blood another time. You shift in your seat and notice something you hadn't before. A small group near the back, clearly foreigners, unwrapping some kind of flat, sun-dried bread painted with what looks like olive tapenade and chopped anchovy. The smell reaches you on the wind and you blink. Strong. Very strong. Still, curiosity wins out. You approach, quietly, and the older man holding the tray offers you a strip. It's chewy, salty, vaguely fishy. But there's something sweet underneath, like pomegranate molasses or aged balsamic. It lingers on your tongue long after the texture disappears. You thank him and return to your bench. Historians still argue about regional snack customs among Roman provinces. Foods varied wildly between Iberia, North Africa, Gaul, and the Eastern Mediterranean. What passed for lunch in Alexandria might have been considered overly spiced nonsense in Britannia. But here in Rome, everyone brings their flavor to the party. You look down. Your own little stockpile has dwindled to a crust of barley bread, a broken date stem, and a bit of mystery cheese that's begun to sweat under the sun. You nibble at the edge, stronger than before, tangier but still edible. And just as you lean back, feeling the food settle and your thoughts begin to drift, Someone nearby sneezes, violently. It sets off a chain reaction. 4 more sneezes echo across the aisle, followed by polite chuckles and muttered apologies. The culprit? Probably the vendor, now sprinkling crushed black pepper over a tray of roasted nuts like he's salting an audience. You manage to catch a handful before he passes. Still warm, toasted in olive oil and tossed with dried herbs. They crunch delightfully between your molars, grounding you as the final combatants exit the field and attendants once again pour fresh sand onto the arena floor. You sigh. It's that part of the afternoon now, the lull between action and finale. The matches are mostly done, the vendors are folding up their baskets, and the audience shifts into a quieter rhythm. A few families begin gathering their things. Others stay, sun-dazed and full-bellied, watching the cleanup like it's another performance. Your eye catches something odd. A woman carefully removing a sealed ceramic pot from a straw-lined basket. She cracks the wax lid, peels it back, and stirs what looks like a creamy custard. You'd heard of Roman custards, patina de Pyrrhus, perhaps, or a cheese-based pudding sweetened with honey and dusted with cinnamon. She offers a spoonful to the child beside her, who closes his eyes dramatically after tasting it. You're enchanted. Another spoonful is passed in your direction. You accept it like a sacred offering. It's soft, creamy and smooth, with a depth that suggests aged cheese and fermented milk, sweetened just enough to count as dessert but never pretending to be innocent. You blink slowly. The texture is oddly sleep-inducing. Or maybe that's just your entire body deciding it's time for a nap. Below, someone begins singing softly, one of the attendants sweeping the sand. A slow tune. Melancholy. It blends with the breeze and the fading scent of garlic. You press your back against the sun-warmed stone wall behind you. Around you, people are settling in place not for more action but for digestion. Some are stretching, some are snoozing. One woman is threading leftover grape stems into a makeshift bracelet. You spot a man offering dried melon slices from a woven tray. He's not shouting, just walking gently, holding out the fruit like a peace offering. You take one. It's leathery, sweet, and slightly sour. A good way to end the meal. The crowd is no longer roaring. It's humming. Quiet conversations, low laughter, the rustle of leaves and cloth. The only sharp noise is the clink of amphorae being gathered by slaves and the distant bray of a stubborn donkey outside the gates. You take one last bite of melon, press your palms to your knees and let the silence soak in. No one is in a hurry. The games are over. But the feast continues in memory. You stay seated long after most others have started to leave. The Colosseum isn't empty, not yet, but it's slowly exhaling. Like a great animal that's been fed and fought and is now content to lie in the sun, belly full, limbs stretched out. Around you only a few spectators remain. They sit in small clusters, sharing the last of their wine or humming softly as they pack up their things. You watch a family gathering their belongings into reed baskets, half-empty jars, folded cloth napkins, and what looks like a surviving piece of honey cake. The youngest child tries to sneak a bite. The mother lets her. You smile. You would have done the same. A soft rattle of clay draws your attention. Someone nearby is unsealing a jug with a small wooden spoon tied to the neck. Inside, you catch a glimpse of pale mush, perhaps mashed lentils with coriander or a spiced fava bean paste. The texture looks dense, almost doughy. You're not hungry anymore, not really, but your hand acts before your stomach can intervene. You gesture and the man offers a spoonful. You take it with a nod. The flavor is subtle, earthy, familiar. It feels like something you've eaten before in a dream. Historians speculate that Roman pulse-based spreads were common for travel and spectacle alike. Cheap, easy to pack, and forgiving in the heat. Still, each version carried a unique twist. Herbs from home, different oil blends, or wildflower honey if you were lucky. What you're tasting now isn't fancy, but it's generous. That matters more. Down below, the maintenance crew is now stacking broken shields and dragging nets into corners. The day's violence has been scrubbed away, replaced by faint ruts in the sand and a few dark patches where memory clings. You lean back once more, bones softening against the stone bench. Above, the sky is shifting, no longer blue but a hazy lavender with streaks of dusty pink. The air smells of warm straw, tired feet, and roasted grain. And maybe fennel? You glance over your shoulder and spot an older man heating something over a low clay burner. He's squatting behind a row, carefully turning small discs of dough on a flat stone. You edge closer, curiosity outweighing fullness. Flatbread, he offers. Fennel seeds. Little olive oil. Still warm. You nod slowly. He hands you one, folded in a palm leaf. It's thin, crisp at the edges, and surprisingly fragrant. You break off a piece and chew. The fennel adds a sharp, almost licorice-like sweetness that cuts through your lingering sleepiness. Others nearby are clearly envious. A few more gather. The old man doesn't charge. He just smiles and hands out bread, one piece at a time, as though dispensing a final blessing on the day. You thank him mouthful. Further up the stands, someone strikes a match and lights a small oil lamp. The glow flickers in the dusk. A few others follow. Little pockets of light bloom like fireflies among the stone rows. It's not dark yet, but Rome is preparing for it. You close your eyes just for a moment. In the distance, a lute begins to play. Someone's brought music for the walk home. The tune is slow, unpolished, but kind. A few people begin to hum along. One woman sings under her breath. You chew the last of the bread, savoring its warmth. You're no longer focused on flavor. You're focused on memory, on the feeling of having eaten and listened and watched and survived an entire day among thousands. Below, one last crew of arena workers bows to each other and files out through a side gate. Even they are done now. But not you. You reach into your pouch one last time, and to your surprise, your fingers brush something soft. A single preserved date tucked deep in the folds. Forgotten. You lift it like a secret. It's darker than the others, more wrinkled, more intense. A dessert's dessert. You hold it between thumb and forefinger, then slowly bring it to your lips. Tastes like time. Sticky and strong. The last word of a poem. You swallow. And finally, you're full. The stone beneath you is finally cool. Not cold, but no longer radiating that relentless Roman heat that's pressed into your back all afternoon. The arena lies quiet now. No blood, no sand flying, no chance for death or mercy. Just a wide open space slowly disappearing beneath shadow. You hear someone behind you gather up their things, cloth rustling, ceramic clinking against ceramic. They stand, stretch, then sigh in that unmistakable Roman way, part contentment, part knee pain. You know the feeling. Still you don't move. Instead, you look down into your lap at the debris of your day, an olive pit caught in your tunic's fold, a smudge of fig on your knuckle, and the unmistakable flake of dried barley stuck to your sandal strap. Evidence of indulgence. Of victory in its own small way. The man beside you, one of the last strangers left in your row, gives a soft grunt and opens a waxed paper bundle. Inside are the crumbs of something toasted, crackers maybe, or flatbread chips. He nudges the bundle toward you. You accept because you're you, and that means somehow there's always room. The piece you take is thin, crisp, seasoned lightly with what you think might be crushed coriander seed and sea salt. It snaps delicately in your mouth. It's just the kind of flavor to keep your brain moving when your body has otherwise decided to rest. Long day, the man murmurs. You nod. Good matches, he adds. You nod again, but what you really want to say is good snacks, because the food has lingered far longer in your senses than the swordplay ever will. A breeze rustles through the top tier of the Colosseum and drifts downward, catching pockets of fennel smoke, vinegar, dried fruit, and a faint hint of burned oil. Someone is still frying something somewhere. You breathe it in. It's not unpleasant. It's layered. The Roman world, after all, wasn't clean or polished. It was a mosaic of smells and tastes and textures. Some beautiful, some questionable, most unforgettable. A woman passes in front of you, balancing an empty basket on her hip and humming a low tune in Greek. You catch a whiff of rosemary from her cloak, probably used earlier in cooking or maybe just to scent her clothing. You wonder what she brought today. Maybe roast leeks? A date paste tart? Pickled beets? You'll never know. The mystery feels appropriate. Historians often write about Roman banquets, about elite feasts with 12 courses and imported oysters from Britannia. But you're more interested in this, the small, mobile everyman feast. The crusts, the spreads, the dried fruits eaten in between duels and just before sunset. The food that wasn't praised in poetry but lasted in people's hands. The woman disappears into the exit tunnel. A child follows, dragging a cloth-wrapped bundle behind him, leaving a trail of olive pits like pebbles marking a journey. You blink slowly, eyelids heavy not just from exhaustion, but from the simple comfort of having been fed well. Again and again. The sun touches the rim of the stone walls now, flooding the upper tier with its last gold. The arena, now cleared, glows like a shallow bowl lit from within. And just as your body begins to suggest that maybe now is the time to rise and stretch, a whisper of scent reaches you, unexpected and soft. Cinnamon. Real cinnamon. You look around. A man near the bottom row is unwrapping something from cloth. You see it, a baked ball, maybe a biscuit, browned and firm, steam escaping as he breaks it open with his fingers. Inside, what looks like a mixture of dates, honey, crushed walnuts, and, you're not imagining it, true cinnamon. He doesn't look like a patrician. More like a baker. Maybe this was his contribution to the afternoon. A personal dessert. A secret finale. He catches you staring. Without a word, he lifts his hand, offers you the other half. You raise a brow. He shrugs. So you go. You walk the few steps, feet dragging, stomach both heavy and wanting. He hands you the warm piece like it's nothing. You take a bite. It's the best thing you've tasted all day. It's soft but holds its shape. Sweet but not cloying. Warm in flavor and texture alike. You taste the spice first. Real cinnamon, possibly cardamom, and then the deep sweetness of dried fruit. It's dense, balanced, rich without being indulgent. You chew slowly, eyes closed, the world narrowing to that single mouthful. You finish it and thank him. He nods once. Nothing more. You return to your seat, the taste lingering like a memory you don't want to end. You sit. You rest your hands on your lap. And for the first time all day you feel still. Completely. The Colosseum is nearly empty now, its great arches shadowed in the fading light. The city beyond the walls begins to murmur awake again. Vendors packing their carts, children yelling in distant alleys, the occasional bray of a donkey determined to make itself heard. But inside this massive amphitheater, time seems to have slowed to a crawl. Or maybe a yawn. You're not the last to leave. Not yet. A handful of others still linger, some chatting in low voices, others simply watching the final light play against the stone. And you, full and warm and faintly sticky from candied almonds, sit like a stone carving of yourself, a statue of one well-fed human digesting history and cheese. To your left, the man with the silver dish, the one who earlier flaunted his luxurious honey cake, leans back and pulls from under his cloak a surprise, a final snack. This one's peculiar. A dark, glossy sphere, maybe a preserved quince or pear soaked in wine and herbs. He cuts it open with a small knife and offers you a slice. You accept, of course. At this point it would be a betrayal of character not to. It's dense and fragrant, with a texture somewhere between jelly and dried fruit leather. It tastes of cloves, vinegar, and something floral. Possibly rose. Possibly something invented specifically to confuse your palate. Historians still debate the ingredients of such preserved fruits. Some recipes survive in Roman cookbooks like Apicius, but others were passed down orally or varied by region. Some believe they included saffron, others say crushed violets. You can't say for sure, but this one tastes like the end of a meal. The punctuation mark at the bottom of a very long scroll. You thank him. He nods once and begins wrapping the dish again with careful, almost sacred movements. Even the wealthy know, the last bite must be respected. To your right, a small family finishes packing up. The child clutches a half-eaten sweet bun, now more flour than form, and his mother gently lifts him by the armpits, balancing a basket against her hip. They descend the steps quietly, the boy blinking heavily as he chews. You think, he probably won't remember the fight, but he'll remember the bread. You glance down at your own lap. Nothing left. No fig stems. No bits of crust. Even the grease stains are starting to fade as the cool evening air drifts in. You wipe your palms on your tunic and press them to the stone on either side of you, grounding yourself. The vendors are gone. Even the amateur ones, the kids with candied pine nuts and makeshift wine skins, have wandered out. What remains is the scent. Not of blood or sweat anymore, but of anise seed, sour grape must, and dusty bread loaves. You breathe deeply, pulling the memory into your lungs. A guard wanders by, not rushing anyone but offering the kind of presence that gently reminds, it's time. The arena is closing for the day. You nod at him. He nods back. But you stay seated just a little longer. Across the field, the shadow of a banner flutters, catching the last light before the sun finally dips below the walls. Someone nearby clears their throat. Another stretches and lets out a long, satisfied sigh, the kind only made after a full day of watching, eating, and occasionally laughing at the poor soul who dropped pickled onions down their toga. You stand slowly, bones clicking into alignment like a well-used folding chair. Your body protests but mildly, like a cat roused from a nap rather than a soldier from battle. At your feet, a few overlooked crumbs cling to the edge of the bench. You brush them away gently, ceremonially almost as if saying goodbye to the snack chapter of your life. As you begin the descent down the steps, you overhear someone behind you describe a recipe for fried dormice stuffed with minced herbs and dipped in honey. You shudder just slightly then laugh under your breath. Only in Rome could that be a nostalgic treat. You reach the arena floor, now just raked sand and faint boot prints. A few workers are still tidying. One gathers broken amphora shards. Another collects dropped food wrappers, fig leaves, cracked date pits, olive skins. You pass them, offering a nod of respect. Not for the cleanup, but for the feast. The quiet now is almost overwhelming. The kind of silence that follows a long, bustling day. You pass through the arched corridor that leads out, and for a moment the breeze channels through it just right, cooling your face, ruffling your tunic, whispering the ghosts of thousands of games and meals and stories told between bites. Outside the sky is indigo. A single star appears. And you? You're full. You're content. You're Roman, if only for today. Your feet touch the dusty street outside the Colosseum with a quiet finality, like the last page of a scroll rolling itself closed. The evening breeze is steady now, brushing against your face, carrying away the warmth of the arena and the lingering scent of vinegar, stone, and roasted things. You look back once, just once. The amphitheater towers in silhouette against the fading sky, its arches glowing faintly with torchlight. You think, there's no place like this anywhere else. A monument to spectacle, to order, to chaos. And, unexpectedly, to snacks. The crowd disperses in waves, not hurried. Some walk in twos and threes, still licking fingers or carrying leftovers wrapped in waxed linen. A few pause at the gates, chatting with guards or arguing about who really won the last match. One older woman is still nibbling a candied nut, unbothered by time or traffic. You walk slowly, letting your stomach guide your pace. Full, yes, but not the heavy kind. This is a warm fullness, a layered fullness. You've eaten barley bread and spiced cheese, honey cakes and stuffed dates, pickled vegetables and roasted meats. You've tasted a dozen regions of Rome today without leaving your seat. As you round the corner of a narrow street, a dog barks lazily from a doorway. A tavern ahead flickers with firelight, its scent wafting toward you. Leeks, maybe lamb fat, a hint of mint. You smile to yourself, not out of hunger but recognition. There is always more food in Rome. It's a city that feeds its people with stories, with flavor, with memory. You stop at a fountain to wash your hands, cupping the cool water and letting it rinse away the fig syrup, oil smudges, and soft cheese residue still clinging to your fingers. You think about each flavor, each vendor's voice, each unwrapped surprise eaten between roars and rituals. These weren't just snacks, they were part of the show. Somewhere behind you, a horn sounds again, not from the arena, but from a passing cart hauling olive barrels. The streets buzz softly now like bees after dusk. You follow the rhythm homeward, steps slow, heart light. And as you pass under a shaded awning, you reach into your pouch on instinct. It's empty. But that's okay. You've eaten the city. Wind down, 300 words. And now, as your feet rest and your eyes begin to flutter at the corners, the stories of the day soften into memory. The noise fades. The crowd vanishes. The sand settles. And in its place, quiet. The kind of quiet you can only earn after fullness. After sitting through sun and shadow, after laughing at falling olives and savoring a stranger's kindness through a bite of candied figure. You remember the warmth of the sausage, the crunch of roasted chickpeas, the startling sweetness of that final date. You don't need to see the arena anymore to feel its shape. You've carried it with you, through food, through feeling, through the slow ritual of being present. Breathe in now. Let the faint aroma of garlic and honey drift out with your breath. Let the sand beneath your seat fall away, and the hard stone dissolve into softness. There are no more fights tonight. No more vendors calling, no more debates over mustard versus garum, no more distant trumpets echoing through arches. Just a full belly, a quiet heart, and the soft weight of dusk closing in around you like a blanket. You've seen the gladiators. You've shared your food. You've tasted the empire one bite at a time. And now you rest. Close your eyes. Let the soft flicker of torchlight behind your lids become dreams. Let your breath slow with the rhythm of the drums now long since stopped. And let yourself drift gently through time. You are full. You are safe. You are home.